Hi and welcome to another Alpha Challenge video. In this video I'll be breaking down a new archetype, Food Fight Warrior. It uses the new 10 mana dragon from the Into the Emerald Dream mini set, and the idea behind the deck is you want to be able to use the Cloaked Corruption on the card as well, and then use one of your 1 mana spells to deal damage to the egg so you can hatch both of them at the same time. I'm going to show you this gameplay footage before I go into the deck archetype to explain what it looks like. So I played down the 1 mana location, and the idea behind that is just get it onto the board. It can be used so you can trade your eggs if you really need to. It can also be used in addition to having your Firey War Axe. And when you use the Firey War Axe plus that, you can use it to then get your dragon out of your deck. The food fight's used to get the dragon out of your deck as well, so you don't want to use it into many deck archetypes unless they have some minions on the board, so you can start threatening some damage towards them. They ended up playing Parrot Sanctuary, so they're not really doing anything at the moment. So I just play down the Fiery War Axe. I did draw into the Concussive Shells as well, which is essentially like the best draw that you can get with this sort of hand that I have. So I'm going to be able to get the dragon out next turn for sure. I can get the 2 dragons out actually, because I'll be able to go Food Fight War Axe into the Food Fight minion, then use the one damage from the location. Then I can get then the dragon would be summoned. Then I'd use the Corrupted Cloak, and then I use the Concussive Shells onto it. So they end up playing down their Fairy Tale Forest. I then draw my card. I gotta Succumb to Madness, which is in general not going to be that great to start with in your opening hand unless you have the dragon access to you as well. I did make a slight misplay with how the damage was done. Then I should have used the War Axe going into it first and then used the 1 damage. I took 2 more damage than what I needed to, but in reality it doesn't really matter with the board state that I have at the moment with the 12/7 dragons that are on the board. The reason why they're so strong is if your opponent plays any minions down and it's not a taunt minion, you can just go face and then they can hit the minions at the end of your turn, and as you can see, the opponent end up conceding. So the idea behind the deck is you do want to get those big dragons out. You can use Concussive Shells on your location egg to be able to get the smaller ones, and you want to make it so you can have minions to hit into onto the board. I did it on that board because they weren't particularly doing anything, and the Nebula Shaman doesn't actually really do anything for the first few turns anyway. There's only the 2 minions in the deck, the 10 mana Drakes, and with that, if you use something such as Chemical Spill, it allows you to get it just a bit earlier. You never want to have the Drake in your opening hand though, but if you are stuck with it, obviously the Chemical Spill can help with that issue for you. It also does use the Terran package, and the Terran package is there to help you cycle through your deck really quickly, while also then applying some early game pressure towards your opponent. It's in general there just to make it so you do have some early game and some things to put onto the board as well. The Cloaked Corruption is used to copy your Drake, obviously, and with the Drake, the copy of the Drake, you can use, as I showed just before, use the Concussive Shells or use Shield Block or Slam or something like that into it to be able to get it activated that same turn as well. So you do have a few different combos that you can do with that. You can also use Brawl if you want to, like I just drew then, and that can help with your setup. Cards that you want to mulligan for in this deck is you always want to keep Food Fight. You quite often want to keep Fiery War Axe. You quite often want to keep Liftoff. And sometimes you'll keep things such as Slam. You also want to keep your your Cloak of Corruption, and that's in general going to be the sort of cards that you'll keep. Like, there's not too much else that you'll be worrying about. And with that, you do want to try and make it so you are applying the pressure towards them. So sometimes the Starport's okay to keep. The 1 mana location's okay to keep, but it's not excellent. So yeah, there's a few different things that you can keep in this deck that has the early game. Shield Block is a sometimes keep, but it's not that useful because if you mulligan that card anyway, it means that you are drawing the card, which is the main reason why you use it. You definitely don't want to keep Jettison because that card's essentially there just in case that you haven't got any of your food fights, or if you've got both drakes in your hand, chemical spill or something like that, that's quite important for it. And what is currently happening in this game that I'm playing against my opponent, they are using the location Warlock, and I do obviously have the food fight that's in my hand, and I have the location on the board as well, which will be useful going into the following turns. Since they are using the minions, low health minions, it means that my Drake is going to be a lot more effective as well into them. I do obviously have the food fight here as well, so I do just play it down onto the board. And I also get rid of the 4-1. I don't really want to be dealing with a minion that big at the moment. Because if I'm taking a lot of chip damage, it is going to be a lot worse for me than just not. Like, it's obviously a lot less damage and a lot less pressure they'd be applying towards me in that. And it means that their giants won't be as a bigger issue for me as well. They end up using Nidus 1, which means that they aren't really going to be doing too much this turn. They use the spawning pill, which obviously gets them another Zergling out of their deck, out of their pool, which doesn't, once again, do too much. I'm not really too worried about that. They use the Dread Handler. Once again, it's just to apply tempo, so it's not really doing anything still for them. And I do have the Starport. I use the Brawl to be able to try and get the Drake onto the board. And since they use the Handler, it means that the Dragon will always be able to be summoned from it, unless the food fight ended up winning. So I end up winning, obviously, with the food fight. It was quite a low chance of it having any sort of issue there. And then the Drake deals the face damage coming out of the food fight that was there. So as you can see, I've got the egg on the board, and I've also got the Drake there. So if they don't clear the Drake, it's basically game over for them. And then with the egg that's there as well, it means that if I need to, I can use the location to be able to get an extra 2 attack on it, so I can use it to attack into the opponent's minions as well, if I need to. They end up using the spawning pool, so it means that their minions are going to have rush this turn, so they are right now thinking of a way that they can clear my Drake, and also keep it so then there's no minions on the board. Because if they keep any minions on the board, it means that they're going to be in a significant issue against my Drake again, because I'll be able to get the egg onto the field. I'll be able to hatch the egg, and then it will get another Drake, which will be able to deal with their minions. They end up trading all of their guys. They do have a Seaside Giant, which is a little bit of a problem for me. But it was very silly of them not to use the 1/1 to trade into that, because it means that I do have obviously the extra pool, extra minion to attack with my Drake. So I use the location to hit onto the 2/1. I then use the egg to get the other Drake to get it into the pool. It gets the egg obviously using the location. I then use the hero power to be able to. Right now I'm calculating how much damage it does, but I use my hero power to get the shield slam. Unfortunately, I'm still going to be a little bit off because of the fact that I did need to use the depths to be able to get the extra damage onto the egg to make it hatch. I then get the other Drake onto the board. I do the little bit of damage to it, so it will leave them with just 2 health that's on their board. And because of the 8/8 golem, 8/8 giant. And then, yeah, they're in quite a problematic situation. So they do obviously get the Grifter, which can apply a little bit of pressure to me. But since I don't have any minions sitting on the board, I'm not really too worried about what they could potentially get from it. They do end up just getting the draw 3 cards, so it just leaves them with nothing really to do. They used the consume twice, so they did have 2 consumes, which means that they do get most of their health back. And then they're able to trade into my Drake. I do draw into another food fight, which isn't useful anymore because I do have the 2... I do have the second dragon in my hand, and I just use the draw 3 because since I don't have any cards to use at the moment, it's obviously going to be best to get something out and start applying some pressure. I use both the lift off to draw some more cards, so as you can see, using the lift off does mean that you cycle through your deck a little bit, which means that you are going to get closer to getting your 3 mana spell now, where I'll need to get the extra Drake coming out. since I do still have the 2 locations sitting on the board, it means that I can deal quite a lot of damage coming from hand once I do end up getting that 3 mana spell. They end up using the Mixologist, so I'm not too concerned about that since they have a lot of minions that aren't very useful in their pool. They end up getting the summon of a minion, and it does get them a Zergling, so it's not really too much of a problem. And then they play down their second Ultralisk Cavern, so it does clear all of my Starship pieces, which is fine. I'm not really too worried about that. And then they use the Grifter to go face into me. At the moment, I don't really have anything that I want to do. Like, there's not too much pressure that I can really apply at the moment. So I just use the Brawl to get rid of all the minions that are on the board. It possibly would have been better to keep it keep it for a later turn because they don't have any giants at the moment that they're using. But with the amount of with the possibility of them having giants is a lot less likely since they won't be able to get the 8/8 out coming from the Ultralisk Cavern because they've used both of their consumes. So they can obviously still get the duplicate of the Ultralisk Cavern, but they can't get the extra one. They end up playing down Kerrigan, so it does put me a little bit lower on health, which is obviously starting to get to a significantly concerning amount. I do obviously still have my Battle Cruiser, which is relatively healthy. I use the shield block to cycle through, and I get another shield slam, so I'm not really doing still too much this turn as well. I want to hold the concussive shells because I could potentially be needing them to use them for the Starship. So I launched the Starship to see how it goes. Since it's already dealing a 2 damage AoE, I was hoping it would be able to deal with the Brood Queen. And then I still obviously do have my location there to the side that you can see, but it doesn't really matter too much if I trade into the 2/1 or not. Like, it can do a bit, and I end up just getting rid of it just in case, because even though they do have the spawning pool, they possibly may not be able to clear my board at the moment. They end up using Table Flip, so it does clear the 2/2, and they play down their 5 mana minion, which then is able to clear my 10-drop because they use both of the procs. I play down the Drake just on board to apply some pressure, and then I get the copies of it coming from the eggs. It obviously can deal with the 5/5 that's there, and then I end up just passing the turn over to them. So the only way that I'm really countered by this is if they use a Ceaseless Expanse, or if they use a Table Flip into a Ceaseless Expanse or something along those lines. They use the Nidus Worm, which doesn't draw them anything since they don't have any more Zerg cards in their deck. They have obviously used quite a lot using the spawning pools and all the caverns and both consumes and their Kerrigan, so I'm a bit confused why they thought they would have some more spells or some more Zerg minions into their deck. And since they still are a turn off their caverns, they're not really applying too much pressure towards me. Like, they can deal with the Drake, but they're not really getting any further than that. I think they use the Zerglings here to trade into my 12/2, because they really don't want my food fight, my eggs to hatch, because if they do, it obviously means that the game's going to be over from that. I do draw into the 3 mana spell to be able to get the extra Drake if I want to, and I hit into face and hit into them, and then I summon the food fight to be able to deal lethal into them, because it's the 8 damage plus the 2 damage that's there, and then I can use the concussive shells to be able to deal the last damage that needs to be done. And then obviously that's the game for that. So, like, it does have the ability, even if you lose all of your minions, to go later, but it's, in general, you are trying to apply that extremely early pressure towards them coming from the face damage that you can do to their smaller minions. So in general, the way that you want to play around it is you don't want to be playing down smaller minions, because if you do, it's very easy for it to just hit into one of those and then you end up just winning the game from there. So with that Mulligan, I did keep the Cloak of Corruption and the Liftoff, because that's in general the best cards that you're going to keep. Unfortunately, I did draw 2 of the other Terran cards, because Liftoff means that it's not going to get its full value coming from it. Because in general, you're using Liftoff to be able to cycle through your deck, not so much to get those particular cards. I use the concussive shells to be able to clear the little Drake on the board. I don't really want to be taking 3 damage per turn, since that can obviously apply a little bit of pressure coming into me. I do also have the Cloak of Corruption here as well, so I play that down. And with the Food Fight in my hand as well, it does mean that I will be able to get access to the Drake relatively soon. They do play down their 1-1, hit me with their 1-1, and then I use Liftoff here just to draw a few more cards and cycle through. I do obviously have the Fiery War Axe here as well. The only problem with this hand at the moment is that I don't have any... I didn't have a concussive shells or anything to be able to access the Food Fight. I do get Jettison here, which is fine. It doesn't really do too much in most matchups. It's just there, once again, just to save you in case you don't have a particular spell that you need, and it's a last sort of chance for that. Because you may need a concussive shells, or you may need a chemical spill or a food fight or something like that, and it's just an extra possibility of getting it. It's not extremely likely. I do obviously have the 2-1 minions that are here. I have the concussive shells and I have the starport, so I use the concussive shells to be able to then trade into the 4-4 because I don't really want to be taking too much damage coming from them. I play down the food fight and then I use the starship. I launch the starship to be able to get some damage, some tempo onto the board, and obviously it means that then when they do try to attack into me, it's a possibility some of these minions may survive that I can then use to take out the food fight minion. They end up trading into 2 of my 2/2s, which is fine. I'm not really too concerned about that. I use the Jettison just to see what I end up getting. Couple Muscle's the only card that's actually useful in those sorts of ones. It's not that useful, but it's somewhat useful. I'm just deciding here between Heavy Plate and the Cup of Muscle. I do end up opting to just keep the second one. And right now I'm just determining if I am going to be able to take out the food fight. I use the 6-3 to trade into the 4-5, I believe. Unfortunately, that does mean that I'm not going to be able to get the take out the food fight minion, which wasn't going to be possible with how those trades would be anyway. So I trade into the minions that are there. And I just put I've put 3 damage onto the food fight minion using my War Axe. It means that if they don't end up playing another taunt down, I'll be able to get the Drake out of the deck next turn. They use their hero power, so it does mean that they don't have any taunt minions that I need to worry about. And they do end up obviously getting a spell, which does get them one of the Ysera procs. They get another one of their Drakes to be able to immune. And then I draw into a Shield Slam, which is quite good for me. I do end up, I believe, making a mistake this turn. So I use the hero power there. I then trade... So basically I end up trading using my hero power into the 4-3, which means that I'm not able to use the extra Drake proc with my Shield Slam, which is here or there. Like, it's a little bit of an issue, but it could have potentially cost me, so it wasn't an excellent play. So I then just opt to think of a different play that I could potentially do, because I do just launch the Starship here. It does mean that I do get an extra minion onto the board. Obviously it would have been better having the extra Drake on the board for me, but that was the mistake that I did end up making. They use the 1-mana spell to get them a taunt minion, and then they also play down the Dreadwing, so once again they're not really doing too much to me. Like, I'm not really too concerned about what is happening. I do use the Starport here to get out my extra minion. I have the Drake here as well, so I can apply a lot of damage going into them. I use the Shield Block here to be able to get the Shield Slam online for me, and then I play down the location to then be able to take them out. And then with the damage that they have left on their health, it does mean that I do have lethal here. And then, yeah, ends up finishing there. So, yeah, like, you can see that although I did make a mistake, I was able to turn around from there, but it would have, the game probably would have been over a turn earlier if I had have kept the Drake, because I don't think those decks really run equality or those sorts of combo cards anymore to be able to take out a stronger board. Going into this last game, I am playing against a Hunter, so Hunters are playing quite an aggressive sort of style, and Warrior, in this sort of style of Warrior, does have a lot of cards that can deal with wider boards and stronger boards, and also since they're using a lot of tokens, it means that you can use the Drake to be able to take out the smaller tokens that are there. I ended up opting to keep Starport and Fiery War in this opening hand, just because Starport means that I can have some minions on the board early, and the Fiery War obviously can be used to trade into other minions, or I can use it to take out the entree for the food fight to be able to get my Drake out of the deck. Because a lot of the Hunter decks that are playing at the moment, they are using the Zerg package. They're going quite aggressive. They use the coin here, and then they end up summoning an egg, so I don't really want the egg to be sitting on the board, because if they do end up getting some buffs and things like that onto it, it could be a bit of a problem for me. I'd much rather it already be popped so then they can't activate the death rattle to deal with me. And since they hit into me while I hit into them with the weapon, it does mean that they do take the 2 damage in my turn, because it's hitting into someone that has damage there. I play down the food fight, so it does obviously have the minion onto the board, and then I'm just hoping to be able to get some sort of other damage dealer to be able to get the Drake out of my deck. They use the Nidus Worm, so it means that they aren't going to be applying any more pressure to me in this turn. They play down their spawning pool, which is fine. I'm not really too concerned, because once again, I do obviously have the Brawl in my hand as well. I draw into a chemical spill, so I do just use the shields block here because I don't have any way to clear the food fight at the moment. It's more than likely I'm going to have to use the Brawl to be able to clear it, which is in general going to be ideal because they'll probably end up going wide this turn, and it will mean that I'll be able to get the Drake onto a relatively empty board except for 1 minion. They use their RC Rampage, so it obviously does mean that they are going to they will end up going wide, and with the Brawl turn and the fact that they do have the food fight on the board, it does mean that I will get the Drake out onto a relatively clear board. It ends up leaving just the egg alive, and then I can use the Drake to trade into, it will trade into that 0-2 and then go face, and then their minion will trade into my Drake and then die, so it does mean that I get a full clear onto that. Since I have the 3 mana spell in my hand as well, it means that I can clear another food fight if I need to be able to get another Drake out of the deck. They do end up playing down Zerglings, so I don't have to go for that sort of play, which is good for me. I do obviously have the food fight here. I use the shield, the Starport, and then I use the shield slam to get it out, because in general it's better just getting it from the deck rather than getting it from my hand, because I have more access to it. And then next turn I can use this spell to be able to clear their board with whatever anyway. I do obviously still have my Starship as well, which is getting relatively decent sized. And they're not really able to do too much at the moment because like they can use the Zerglings this turn or the Zerg minions this turn, but I do obviously have quite a strong setup to be able to deal with whatever they do end up playing. They play down some Zerglings, and then it obviously does have Rush as well because they just blew up the spawning pool. They also play down their Chef and then use Evolution Chamber, so it does mean that they are able to clear my board, but with that I can use the Discover Drake to be able to just end up winning the game because it will deal lethal to any of the minions that are there on the board. And then they end up conceding. So, yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe, and bye for now.